So I want to talk about this Cleveland Browns Baker Mayfield situation. It's a unique situation that I'm not quite sure I've seen before. Typically, I don't make these kind of videos. I kind of like to wait until there's actual news out to report on. I typically wait until a trade has actually happened. If there's just speculation, I don't really care. So here's what we know so far. Apparently, and this is according to people I trust, people that work at NFL Network who no one bats 1,000, but tend to, these are the guys who bat pretty close to 1,000, like guys like Ian Rappaport, for example, or people that Ian Rappaport would retweet. They've said things along the lines of that the Cleveland Browns were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They were considering going after Deshaun Watson, which, again, if you put the ethics aside, because we still, the whole Deshaun Watson stuff is sticky. I don't really like to talk about that too much. If we just simply talk about the football side of things, it's a no-brainer to potentially, look at a Deshaun Watson instead of Baker Mayfield. And maybe Baker Mayfield could be a trade chip in that scenario, similar to how Jared Goff was a trade chip in the Matthew Stafford trade. Something like that. I could see that logic behind it. But apparently, it was a little bit unclear as to why exactly Cleveland got taken out of the running. It might have been just Deshaun Watson himself didn't want to go to Cleveland because he has a no-trade clause. But regardless, that's what ended up happening was he got taken out of the Cleveland running. So basically, Cleveland was not going to take on Deshaun Watson. Baker Mayfield wrote a very lengthy post kind of talking about how he loves the people of Cleveland and is, doesn't want to leave necessarily, but also, he thanked his teammates. It was very similar to the Aaron Rodgers gratitude post when people thought Rodgers might be retiring, something like that, which kind of, a little bit unclear, a little bit vague, but seemed like something was up. Then it comes out today, Baker Mayfield has officially requested a trade, even though, Watson isn't going to be a Cleveland Brown. Seems like the bridge is burned. Mayfield just not happy about this situation and has decided to just go a different direction. However, apparently the Cleveland Browns said, no, we're not trading you. They don't have to trade him. That's entirely up to them. Just because the player says, I want to be traded, Baker Mayfield is under contract. And not just that, but there's the franchise tag thing. So, Mayfield has his 5th-year option, which is pretty reasonable. I believe it's at 18 or 19 million a year. So they can keep him for this year, which might be why they want to keep him. Of like, hey, we can get at least solid quarterback play, which we saw from Mayfield before the injury, at a relatively cheap price. There's logic there. Now, the other aspect is even if Mayfield plays well and he can get a new contract, the Browns can franchise tag him not once, but as many times as they want to. Like, after a few times, it would get more expensive because the franchise tag price goes up the more you do it to a single player. So that's part of it as well. So I don't think that they would do it too often, but they still have plenty of leverage with Mayfield. Now, maybe they still will trade him, but they want to at least make sure they get the most value out of that. And how do you get the most value out of that? I don't know. So this is where things are interesting. People have talked about this being a very Cleveland Browns move of they finally get a quarterback who's solid, and then they get rid of him over just, not even getting a new quarterback. That's something that I can kind of see. We don't know exactly what's happening. There still are, like, why exactly Mayfield requested a trade. We don't even know if it's about Deshaun Watson. We're assuming that's the case, but we don't know that for sure. So just a very bizarre and unique scenario. And I guess I kind of wanted to just kind of take a step back and think about my own personal thoughts on this. I think on one hand, I can't really blame the Browns for making this move. Again, if we're just talking about from the football side of things. Maybe Mayfield doesn't like it from the ethics side of things, and that's a whole nother discussion. But if it is just he doesn't like the fact that they're looking for a replacement, that's the NFL. You didn't play well last year. Teams are going to at least look for backup plans. They're going to at least field the phone calls when they come in, right? So if that's just what Mayfield is upset about, I don't really see how it could be, quite frankly. Now, again, we don't know. We haven't heard a statement from Mayfield saying he's requested a trade. We've just heard, Mike Garafolo has talked about how that's happened. So that's, one of the guys who has, brought this. And again, I guess Mayfield did tell ESPN, reading this right here, this is the quote, "It's in the mutual interest of both sides for us to move on. The relationship is too far to mend. It's in the best interest of both sides to move on." So there's some information right there, if you want some, is that's something that that's fascinating, that Mayfield just says, like, it's in our best interest for both of us to just move on and be done with this. Is it though? I think that's the other question. Is it in both teams' best interest to move on? Because for the Browns, okay, they said they're not getting rid of him, but what happens here? What do you do from here if you're the Browns? The Browns are a team that I think most people agree, have a really good roster. The quarterback position, it hurt them last year, quite frankly. And it wasn't just the quarterback position that was the issue, right? I mean, we thought this wide receiving core would be awesome with Odell and Jarvis Landry. Neither Odell or Jarvis Landry played well, and now both are no longer on the roster. Now, again, is it because they played poorly? Is it because Baker Mayfield himself played poorly and made them look bad by proxy? Both are possible, and you could certainly make an argument for either one, and I think that's where things get tricky here, of why exactly did the offense sputter at times when it should have had all this talent? Who are you putting the blame on? And again, there's the other X factor of maybe Mayfield is good, maybe Odell and Jarvis were all good, but just the injury is just kind of what made Mayfield play poorly, although again, every time we talk about the injury, I bring up, listen, he was making some bad reads there too. So the injury was a part of it. The injury was not the entirety of it. So that's, again, where things get fascinating. Again, I'm kind of thinking about, okay, so what would make sense here? What teams would want Baker Mayfield? And I can easily think of a bunch. I mean, teams just gave up draft capital for Carson Wentz, right? Mayfield's pretty much going to give you a similar floor to Wentz with a much higher ceiling. Mayfield has, maybe Wentz has a high ceiling because of that one MVP year, but you get what I'm saying. There's still the potential of, hey, Mayfield's a lot younger. He still is on a rookie contract for one more year, so he's not that expensive. For a Pittsburgh Steelers, they would love to go after a Baker Mayfield, right? That would make sense. Even a Seattle Seahawks, I can totally see the logic behind why they would definitely consider something like that. So would teams want Mayfield? Yes. Would the Browns be able to get some draft capital back? Yes. But the only way I can really see this making sense from Cleveland's perspective would be if they got rid of Mayfield and maybe traded for a Kirk Cousins or a Matt Ryan, kind of these older veteran guys who are better than Mayfield right now, but are also a lot more expensive. That's the only way I can really put my mind around this, or if just Cleveland somehow loved someone in a draft, but I don't think they do, because I don't think anyone loves anyone in this draft. It's kind of talked about as not the best draft. So it's just it's a fascinating situation. It's one of these, I can't think of anything like this where a player, a team tries to get an upgrade at the player gets offended and requests a trade, and then the team says, no, we're not trading you. I've never seen something like this happen where he's kind of been held hostage like this, but we have seen it happen where a player requested a trade and it doesn't work out. I think about, this is kind of an obscure reference, but the Tampa Bay Lightning one year had a talented young player who felt like he should get more playing time, Jonathan Drouin. He ended up he requested a trade, was not traded initially, but then eventually got traded the following year, even after he played. So maybe something like that could be interesting. But as a whole, I find it very interesting situation. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.